What is happening, wonderful people? So last night I got a chance to go see 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. And in this film, when Dr. Kelson finds himself in a shocking new relationship with consequences that could change the world, as he knows it, Spike encounters Jimmy Crystal. It becomes a nightmare that he cannot escape. And that's all I can say without giving too much away. Let's talk about it.
What's your favorite scary movie?
So when it comes to the 28 Years Later franchise, or 28 Days Later franchise, whatever you want to call it, and when it comes to 28 Years Later last year and 28 Years Later The Bone Temple, I am not the biggest fan of this franchise. Go back to last year when they first released the first trailer for 28 Years Later. I didn't know anything about it. I heard of the movies. I knew of the franchise. I knew of the movies, but I just never, at that time before I saw 28 Years Later and before they released the first trailer for that movie, I didn't know much about this franchise besides knowing that it was a zombie type franchise or film, you know. And when they released the first trailer for 28 Years Later, I was ecstatic. I was absolutely so pumped for that movie as someone who was not a fan of the franchise, as someone who was not overly familiar with it. And before I saw 28 Years Later, I did watch 28 Days Later, so I have seen all of the movies I have. And I know I'm kind of in the minority on 28 Days Later. I don't think it's horrible by any means. There are some really good things about it, but it's just the way it's directed just didn't really work for me. I know Danny Boyle is a very nuanced director. He has a good sense of detail. He's very detail oriented, and his attention to detail is really, really good. Then it comes to 28 Weeks Later. I actually, funny enough, just watched that one for the first time. I finished it. I started it a couple of nights ago, but I finished it fully last night, or not last night, but earlier yesterday. And I thought it was fine. Again, there are some really good things about it, but I think that one is definitely a step up from 28 Days Later. And when it comes to 28 Weeks Later, if you've been following my channel for a while, or if you've been following my channel since last year, it kind of know two things. Number one, it was my most anticipated movie of last year. It was one of my most anticipated movies of last year. And number two, I was underwhelmed by it. I was disappointed. I was really looking forward to it. I get Danny Boyle, the way he directs. He's a very unique director. He is, but there just was a lot of logical directing, narrative, and writing choices in there that I just didn't really appreciate, that didn't really work for me. And with this one, you have Nia DaCosta, who doesn't have many films under her belt, but she did direct The Marvels, which I personally had fun with. Even I know it's not perfect, but I had some fun with it. And you have Candyman, I believe she directed, which was okay. I think it was okay. And then you have Alex Garland, who wrote this one. He wrote the last one, I believe. I think he maybe wrote the first one as well. He's a great writer. He's a great director as well. So I was excited about that. And you have Danny Boyle producing as well. And after having walked out of 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, it is awesome. So if you're new to my channel, if you've been following my channel for a while, you know that I like to talk about my positives first, then my negatives next. But even when I need to be negative, I will be positive as well. Even when I need to be positive, I will be negative as well. And when it comes to this movie, I really, really enjoyed it. I think this is a crowd pleaser. Definitely see it with the crowd. It's one of those movies where it's funny, but also there are moments where people clapped. Like, my whole theater was absolutely having a ball with it. And honestly, I didn't expect people to clap. I really didn't. And I kind of expected people to laugh because the last one was kind of funny in a way, but this one, just the humor is just, they up the ante with the humor. And I feel like that's kind of where the negatives lie, but I'll talk about that in the negative section. But I really, really enjoyed this one. I think it's way better than 28 Years Later last year. I think it is my favorite in the franchise, and I have seen all the movies now, you know. I think it's definitely better than its predecessor. And, you know, at times, you know, the scope and scale in here, I feel like both feel big in here. They feel massive. But at the same time, it kind of does feel like a smaller film. It is sort of smaller, but at times, the scope and scale really did feel big. And I think it's visually fantastic as well. I think it's directed well. And one of my issues with the other films in the franchise, especially the one last year, I just can't get over the lackluster directing style. And like I said earlier, I know Danny Boyle, who directed 28 Years Later last year, is a very nuanced, he's a very unique director. I get that. He's a good director. He is. But I just, using an iPhone 15 for a movie that's just in a camcorder for the original, that just doesn't work for me. I'm someone who is a movie buff. I'm someone who demands to see a movie that's filmed on a camera. That's just how I am. That's how I am as a fan, you know, and they actually used an actual camera in here, and it's a visually beautiful film. Whether it's the aesthetic, whether it's the overall atmosphere, just whether how it's directed, and the scenes with Samson in here. Just when he's running, and there's a scene, you kind of see it in the trailer, where he meets up with Kelson, Ralph Fiennes, in the, like, this grass field, and you see, like, the camera on Samson's face, and the way the camera moves on his face is, like, kind of the point of view, but you obviously see, like, where he's going with his eyes and all that. Really cool how they did that. I think that was really cool. And, you know, it does kind of feel, you know, I talked about the scope and scale, how at times it did feel big and massive, but at times the scope and scale kind of did feel small as well. It does feel self-contained. It does feel kind of self-contained in here, which is not a bad thing. I think that was a really cool how they did that. I think it's cool how they did that. And I think the editing in here is great. The editing is really good. And it's just the pacing for the most part is really good because of how chaotic and just frantic this movie is, how funny and just engaging the story is. You're in it. You're into it the whole entire time. And I think the dialogue in here is clever and smart. Ralph Fiennes has some really good moments when he talks. There's a scene where him and Jack O'Connell, you know, Jimmy Crystal, they're talking in here, and towards the end of the film, kind of into the second act, closer to the beginning of the third act, they're talking, and it's just at the Bone Temple, and it's just a really, really funny and good, you know, scene dialogue wise. And I think the score is both epic and haunting. You know, the 28 Years Later franchise score, it's so booming and just so haunting and epic. And I think the sound design in here is really, really good. When it opens, like the opening scene from the film, when it starts from the get-go, there's a black screen and you hear people screaming, and it's loud. Like, it is loud. And it just gets quiet. And it's just so, I don't even know what the right word is to use, but it's so just phenomenal. It's so amazing how they crafted this film in every aspect of this movie. And, you know, the ending does set up the third film in an awesome way. And I won't say who shows up. You probably know who I'm talking about. I guarantee y'all know who I'm talking about. But if you don't know, and if you don't want to know, I'm not going to give anything away. They actually kind of confirmed it in an interview, which I guess I could say who it is, but I'm not going to. But it's really cool. It's really, really cool. And I was looking forward to that. I was waiting for that. And, you know, it's quirky. It's weird. It's nuts. And it's just, there are so many. I talk about the score and the sound design, right? But I have to talk about the needle drops in here. And I'm not going to say what songs are in here. There's about 4 songs. The needle drops in here are absolutely awesome. They are absolutely rad and gnarly. And there's one in particular that I really, really liked. And I think y'all probably know what I'm talking about. It's not the last song that they play, but it's the 3rd song. And I love that song so much. And I was like, oh, I love this song. This is the perfect song for this movie and this franchise. And, you know, I really do think it is the best in the franchise. And, you know, when it comes to 28 Years Later, I don't know if I would say the movie was overall bland or dull last year, but I just really didn't feel any substance in it. But when it comes to this one, I actually felt the personality. I felt like the movie actually had personality and depth. The character had depth. The story had depth. And I just feel like the substance was there. I feel like they actually injected something in here. They injected substance in here. And it's one of those things where, because I was disappointed by 28 Years Later last year, but I really like this one. It's like when you cook a steak for the first time, right? And you taste it and you're like, oh, this is kind of bland. It has no flavor. But you're like, okay, I'm gonna cook a second steak. Hopefully this turns out better. And you eat it and you're like, oh, this actually has flavor. This actually tastes good. I taste that salt and pepper, right? I taste that flavor, that artistic flavor, and it's way better. It's way better. And I think the performances in here are really, really good. You have Alfie Williams, who's really good as Spike again in here. You have a lot of other people in here, but you have Ray Fiennes and Jack O'Connell in here. You do. And I think both are absolutely phenomenal in here. They're both great. But I have to say, Jack O'Connell is the absolute standout here. And, I'll talk about this more in the negative section, because when it comes to the first film and this one, the tone, and again, I'll talk about it more in depth in a little bit, but the tone didn't really bother me in the first one. The tone didn't really bother me in here, but I know the tone kind of bothered a lot of people in the first one. I know if you had a problem with the tone in the first one, I think you're gonna not like the tone in here. I think it's a very divisive film. It is going to be a very divisive film, but it is legit funny at times, and I feel like the humor actually landed, and people were laughing their butts off in my theater. People were enjoying it. The audience, the crowd I was with, and I love that so much. And it's gory. It's gory. It's brutal. It's intense. It's visceral. And I honestly didn't expect it to be more brutal than the first one, And there is a scene at the beginning involving Samson, and it's just, I'm like, you'll probably know what I'm talking about when you see it. You'll be like, oh, that's what he was talking about. I had to look away. I was like, oh, this is nasty. This is legit nasty. And the thing I like about this one is we have the zombie action in here. We do. And we have the zombie action in 28 Years Later as well. But I feel like there was more zombie action in the last one. And I know they kind of focus on the humanity in the last one as well, but they really go all out, and they really focus, fully focus on the humanity in here. And I really, really like that. It's really more about the humans in here than the zombies, or the infected, whatever you want to call them. And I feel like if you liked 28 Years Later, you're gonna like this one. But if you didn't like it, you probably won't like this one. And I'm kind of on the opposite side of the end in a way, where I didn't really like 28 Years Later, but I ended up really liking this one. Now, talking about my negatives, again, I only have a few. I don't have very many, but there are a few that I really do want to touch on that just kind of stuck out to me. And like I mentioned earlier, the tone, like I mentioned, I think a lot of people, the thing that a lot of people didn't like when it came to the first one was the tone, how goofy and silly it was, especially that Power Rangers type scene at the end. Still don't understand that. And when it comes to the tone, this one is more goofy than the last one. It is more silly, and I really didn't think the tone didn't bother me in the last one or this one. I actually kind of found the tone to work, and I kind of found it to be funny. But if you didn't like the tone in the last one, you're not going to like the tone in here. It's very tonally unbalanced, but again, it didn't bother me. It is a very funny and goofy film. It is. And, I would have liked more world building in here. Like I said, it is a very self-contained story, and it kind of takes place in only a few locations. And I would have liked there to be more lore in here. And when it comes to the lore, this doesn't really count as a lore building. It doesn't. Dr. Kelson, Ray Fiennes, he kind of is creating cures, and you see his relationship with Samson, which is really cool. It's really, you like their relationship in here. You actually care about their relationship. And, but at the same time, I really would have liked there to be more lore, more world building. And while I did enjoy the story, I wasn't bored at all. I really did like the story, what it had to offer. I like the suspense and just the thrilling moments and the relationship between Kelson and Samson. And I think the story flowed nicely. I really think it did. But at the same time, I didn't really like the structure of the story, because you have, in a way, kind of two stories in here. You have the story with Dr. Kelson, Ray Fiennes, and Samson, him trying to build a relationship with him trying to study him trying to cure him, right? To see if he can cure him. But you also have the story with Spike, Alfie Williams, and the Jimmies. You have Jimmy Crystal, played by Jack O'Connell, and all the other Jimmies. And you have the story about where it left off from the first one. He's now becoming a Jimmy, and he doesn't want to, but he has to, because if not, he's going to get killed, and they go around slaughtering all of these people, and he just doesn't want to be a part of that. But you have that story, and I wasn't sure how both stories would really connect, but then you understand when you see the film, when the film goes and goes and goes, when it keeps on going, you understand how both stories connect. So I was like, oh, that's how it connected. but even then, I just wasn't the biggest fan of how they structured it. But even then, it's still a fun film. It's still a blast. So yeah, overall, with 28 years later, The Bone Temple, I absolutely had a blast with this movie. As someone who is not the biggest fan of this franchise, as someone who thinks the other 3 films are just okay, this is the first one that I actually really enjoyed. I had an absolute blast with it. So with 28 years later, The Bone Temple, I will give this film a 4 out of 5 stars. And with 28 years later, The Bone Temple, I will say dedicate your time. If you're a fan of this franchise, if you've liked some of the movies, if you've liked all of the movies, including this one, I think you'll really enjoy it. So that I wrap up this video. Thank y'all so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, like, comment, share in this video. We just hit 1K subs a while back. We're now at 1.2K. And the next big milestone is 2K and 3K after that. Beyond that as well. If you're new as well, I do movie reviews, TV show reviews, trailer reactions, movie live streams, movie news, movie rankings, all that wonderful movie stuff under the movie umbrella. And let's talk about it in the comments down below. What's y'all's favorite movie in the franchise? What's y'all's least favorite movie in the franchise? Is it this one? Is it 28 years later? Is it 28 weeks later? Is it 28 days later? Let's talk about it down below. Keep talking movies, wonderful people. Cheers.